Okay,
Anyway, I just
and I
wanted to,
guess by default, it's a commercial lot because the hotel is a commercial operation, right? So I guess it's a little bit.
Different, the code defines it differently when it is the commercial just to get people to go and park there versus when it is an off-site parking that is associated with current use. Right? So
Similar to
that's
what
the same
Serrata
thing.
and Tradewinds have done with offsite lots.
and that will be required to come before the city commission.
Correct.
And a hearing, right?
David?
He,
Alright, thank
you. joined that lot to the property, but he had its own requirement for minimum parking space on property.
The parking requirements allow for off-site parking.
Well, he having to require on-site parking spots.
He has
Yeah,
enough
yeah,
parking
yeah.
on his on-site.
I mean, if that turns into parking, he can't get rid of his on-site parking as a result of building there, right?
Yeah. Yes, but that to build a building there is a separate, completely separate application that we have to submit. Right.
Going back to Serrata, did you say you needed conditional use permit?
Yes, absolutely.
In the meeting last week, they said they did not need that.
They don't need a variance.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah. Thank you for, that's a great question. Let me clarify a little bit as to what the difference is. In the code, you have things that you can do as a matter of right. Things that you can do, anybody in your home, in your property, there are things that you can do that follow exactly certain code guidelines. And when you're doing that, you simply go go to an architect, they develop building permit plan, and they get approved, and off you go to it. On the other extreme, you have things that require a variance of the code. It means that you're not complying with code. You're basically having to demonstrate a need for do something different than what the code requires. That might be setbacks, it might be height, it might be density, but everything's something that is different than what the code requires. And that the burden of proof there is completely on the applicant, and there's absolutely no entitlement or rights. You may get it or not get it. Somewhere in between, our code define things that some of these properties, including hotels, can do as a matter of right without having to come in. And some things that they can do coming in front of the city commission and demonstrating that they're not having an adverse impact on. And this, if you look at the code, there's a list of things that they need to demonstrate there's no adverse impact to the community. So the standard review is, yes, what they said, and that's what I'm clarifying the terminology. They said no variances. Okay, so they're not going to be here asking for things outside the code, but there are things that they're asking that the code requires additional review by the city commission approval. So that's what they'll be coming in. Now, there's absolutely no guarantee that what you will hear tomorrow, what you heard last week, is exactly the same thing as is going to get submitted. They will take the comments from people and take that into consideration and then modify their submittal accordingly. Normally more towards trying to address the concerns from the public.
When you say they, we're always answering, so this is a big concern for all of us.
Right.
When you say they, what do you mean developers?
The owner developers, right?
The owner developers, our comments into consideration.
Yes. Yes.
Possible.
Right. That's possible.
And the other question was, are they going to meet the parking requirements, with what they were offering? They were talking about similar parking spaces.
We haven't. So the code requires that they come to you before they come to us, right? So we have not really reviewed the details of what they submitted. So I cannot really answer that question, because until I get the details of, all of the different amenities and different things that they're going to have inside, we can't calculate parking requirements. But if they say parking will require a variance, right? So if they don't meet it, that requires a specific variance. It's not a conditional use approval. And so if they're saying to the community, that the project won't require a variance, they must have run the numbers, assuming that, and would be no exception for that.
If I may, I think the question was asked in the meeting, they did say, all parking will be contained on site. We've got to do off-site parking, and they had some numbers which I don't remember, and said they're good, they're planning to do more than is required. And that's what they said, and the city manager said, that's all they want to know. So they do, I guess.
Well, they must have talked to someone because they said they were asked for the easement, potential easement for the boardwalk.
Yeah.
So they talked to someone at the city.
Yeah, when they were, before they purchased the property, they were doing some due diligence. And with the due diligence, basically they asked what questions about city code and what the city's plans and codes were. So at that point, we're not negotiating, we're just telling them, this is what the code requires, this is what the plans need to contain. So that's what that.
Right, and I know, Gordon, you said at the commission meeting, boardwalks have been talked about for a while.
Yeah, but let me just kind of address that whole issue of meeting the staff. It's not only not typical, it is typical for an architect, an owner, to come to the city, look up the codes, sometimes before they buy the property, certainly before they spend a lot of money trying to plan something. So I don't want it to sound like that's unusual. It would be very unusual if they didn't do that. And I would say they're not very good if they don't do that. They need to come in, understand the rules and regulations before they even kind of start the process.
Right.
That's what our planners do. We
So
meet with
so
residents.
before they buy the property, they talk to the city, then they buy the property, they don't talk to the city, then they talk to the community, then they talk to the city.
No, they can talk to the city staff any time.
Oh.
But they haven't-
I thought Alex was saying they didn't talk to the city yet.
Well, in this case, they have not sat down with us and do a proposal. That in that scenario that we're discussing, we meet with people all the time, prospective buyers, all the time, of different parcels here, parcel there, and 80% of those never happen. So
The same thing with elected officials. It wouldn't be uncommon for them to call us up. So the Serratics have been trying to meet with me, but every day they get me, I'm not available. So we're trying to do that.
Now, when you refer to the city code, are you referring to the comprehensive plan or things than just that?
okay, so you have the comprehensive plan here, and then you have the city code, the land development code of the city that sits underneath that.
Is it incorporated in that plan?
The city code basically is the executing document of the comp plan. Okay, so if you think about the comp plan is more visionary and more general guidelines. The city codes is the specific, like how-to book, right?
Also, I have a couple of questions that I don't know if they've been addressed. At 46th Avenue, talking about making that a parking lot or whatever. Is there any looking into putting a crosswalk there? We've had, in here 3 years, we've had 2 accidents, 3 fatalities.
Yeah, great question there. And let me address that because there are 2 different efforts going on right now in terms of pedestrian safety. There is a group of residents that Jennifer has been working with that are trying to increase pedestrian safety awareness. And they do have a campaign going on. They got Pete, the safety pelican, and the idea is that we get thousands of new people every week. And it is not like a city or just where you just have to educate the residents of the city. Every week we get a new batch of people, right? So it has to be an ongoing process and an ongoing awareness process. They are coming up with flyers that they're going to be putting in restaurants and bars and hotels, making sure that the tourists know that Gulf Boulevard is almost like a five-lane highway adjacent to the area that they're going to be staying in, and they need to exercise caution in crossing the boulevard. So that process is going to be going on, and it's a continuous process, and it's a resident-driven process. We're working with them and cooperating with them. In addition to that, about a year ago, we got a grant and we were working with FDOT for Pinellas and us with an engineering firm to look at the overall design safety of the boulevard. What I mean by the design safety of the boulevard is the actual physical infrastructure that is enclosed on the boulevard that is going to be addressing crosswalks, is going to be addressing the speed of the boulevard, is going to be addressing whether we synchronize the crosswalks with the traffic lights so we can have more crosswalks, because the actual crosswalk, the flashes in itself, create fender benders too, because they're not synchronized with the lights, increasing the size of the median, so there's more refuge. So when you're crossing, you've got 2 lanes, a rest space, safety space, and another 2 lanes. That is a very different environment than having to run across 5 lanes at the same time. So that group is coming up with specific recommendations, and with the reason why we have the FDOT involved from the very beginning is because it is a state road, and we need to get their approval and consensus through all of that. So yes, so we are looking at where the crosswalks should be and how many should we have, and how do we reduce the speed on the boulevard. Because, for example, that once we finish with the grounding of the boulevard, of getting rid of all those wires, we're going to be able to put more trees and landscaping. What that does visually is it changes the visual dynamic of what you're driving through. And all of a sudden, instead of seeing 5 lanes of traffic that you feel like you're in an airport one-way, by compressing the space, people tend to drive slower. And those are, generally accepted traffic ways to slow down traffic, by creating just a different dynamic and a different environment that doesn't look like a highway. It looks more like an area that is in the middle of a city, right? That's the problem that we have with the boulevard. So.
Well, and that's a particularly bad corner too, because you have entrance to the beach, you have the broken plan, you have people going back and forth.
Yes, it is, and there's another one on 64 that we've been talking about, where it's actually, a particularly challenging area too. So.
Did you have one?
I have one other question. So I hear the trade winds and the Serrata and everybody saying, there's no variances to the plan. So obviously what needs to be changed is the comprehensive plan. Can that be done, and how can that be done? Because they're not, they can build all these things and there's no variances, and that's why I think we voted a different mayor.
Right, and you should watch there's a meeting next Tuesday night where we are going to start discussing the whole comprehensive plan approach, how we got to what we have. And we are going to be starting at 3 p.m. right there on Tuesday. Okay, and it's going to be here and it's going to be televised. So if you're interested in that issue, watch it. Because we are going to go basically, and in my estimation, I think we have 2.5 hours. I don't think we'll finish it. So we have a lot to discuss on how do we get to where we have today, and then how do we move forward with proposed changes and what areas of the plan we were looking to change and how we go about that process. And it's just a long conversation because it just has so many intricacies, right? In terms of how that works. But stay tuned, because that conversation is ongoing by the commission. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, we're looking forward to it. It's a joint workshop.
Is there any
board
chance
and
of
city
stopping
commission.
what's going on?
Well, we don't have anything submitted to us.
I'm sorry?
They have not submitted anything. I think there's a misconception with the process. The process that was adopted by a previous city commission wanted to show transparency, wanted to make sure that people knew about what was going on. So the first step in that requirement is that in the case of the trade winds and the Serrata, they had to reach out to the community first. So that's what they did. That's the first step. They haven't submitted anything to the city. So we
I
don't,
mean,
yeah,
including trade winds that had a meeting almost 7 months ago.
yeah. So I think there's a misunderstanding that, I mean, people have asked me, are you gonna vote yes or no? And I said, they haven't submitted anything.
Can you vote no? I mean, the concern is they're saying, we're not requiring any variance,
Yeah,
so. That
Yeah,
makes it
that's-
possible.
The answer to that. will
Stay
be
tuned on
your
Tuesday.
question, right? Yeah, because we're gonna be talking about all of that. That's a very long conversation. It's not.
that's not a simple answer.
Yes, it's not a simple answer, and after the Sabrada meeting, I had gone to the tradesmen's meeting last year. Saw that, it's a great presentation, and it's a pretty wonderful development, overscale, but still, those guys followed a comprehensive plan, and this is what they're referring to as this, I printed it out last week after the meeting, the Sabrada week after the meeting. Because it sounds like there's nothing to do, now this comprehensive plan is really involved, and it's done professionally. And it's good for development, and it can be good for the beach. What it doesn't hold is what happens to all the traffic. That's where, after reading this whole document, I see that, wow, they really thought this out, and it could be really great, except for they're imposing it on something that is a 4 or 5 lane road, that about 1,000 feet of it have all the resorts on it, and the Ciroc and the trade winds alone is gonna add 2,000 cars by their estimate a day. 2,000 cars at 15 feet long is 5.7 miles long, and the Tyrone Mall is only 5.3 miles from here. And that's all gonna happen daily in a mile stretch on our beach. Now, and the reason I'm really here, because I'm kind of a carpetbagger, because I'm in District 2, but District 2 and District 3 are united because they, Passage Grill is like it's on its own section, and District 1 is kind of on its own section, but the strip that we're dealing with that has the biggest amount of development that's going to affect our properties and our families is District 2 and 3. And the real question I have is, I know that they did the traffic studies for the Gulf Boulevard, it's in here like crate and spades, they did traffic studies and understanding about that. But has anybody done a traffic study, and does the city plan on doing a traffic study for the Corey Avenue Bridge? Because in my neighborhood, there's constant people being picked up by ambulances because it's older people. There's the other day, I drove out of my driveway, oh God, help them. My neighbors are being picked up again because they need medical service. The nearest hospital is right over the Corey Avenue Bridge. That thing only has a certain capacity and it keeps going up and down. Has the city done a traffic study to decide how much traffic that thing can actually take?
I analyzed that when we did the Corey Landings piece. And without really getting too much into the weeds, the traffic study bubble analysis increases depending on the volume of traffic that the development is generating. So if you have an ice cream store, the bubble is like this. If you have trade winds, the bubble is bigger. So I can't tell you how far that bubble is going to get, once they, they do that, trade generation calculations. So I will be, too far into the weeds for you.
Yeah, the trade winds is gonna have to be fed. There's gonna be Cisco trucks coming into there and Coke trucks and beer trucks constantly because that thing is huge. It's a great development, by the way, HKS. If I saw that presentation, it's respectable. I think it might lack a little bit of access to the beach, but they're doing a nice job and they're following that code, the comprehensive plan to the letter. They're doing everything they seem to be able to do to try to mitigate problems, but I think there's some traffic issues that are unmitigatable, if that's even a word.
That's
It is.
the main issue.
Traffic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all, that's the only reason I was here, was to see if somebody's done a traffic study on the corridor. Just because I think it's gonna be a huge headache for everyone and dangerous. Thank God we have our fire trucks on this side.
Board, I don't know if you remember how long ago we did the visioning, the city visioning meetings, that's like 15.
Yeah, we did
20 years
numerous
ago.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, and am I right to remember that the people who did that was the company that developed downtown Sarasota? It was run by an outside company.
Yeah, it was
kind of
a company by the name of Atlantic Jackson.
Okay,
I
so,
don't know that they were involved in anything in Sarasota.
but they're a well-known company.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They've developed a lot of downtown projects in cities like ours.
Yeah.
Having gone to the visioning workshops, one of the things that I constantly go back on thinking was the facilitator talked about how the key to development, to understanding development in St. Pete Beach isn't necessarily all of the projects, the infill projects we're talking about, but it's understanding Gulf Boulevard. And one of the things they talked about was that until we as a community come to a consensus about what Gulf Boulevard is it a local road to take me from Casablanca down to Dolphin Village so I can do my shopping, or here to the rec center so I can work out? Or is it a fast lane highway? And you use the word highway a number of times.
Yes.
To take tourists to the hotels as quickly as possible, deposit them there, and then leave. And that until we as a community understand what that is, understand what Gulf Boulevard is, our main artery, that the development, that talking about comprehensive development or development in general is really, it really will not be successfully thought out. Can't be. And to what you were talking about, Mr. Manager, about working with FDOT, one of the things that they stressed was FDOT, in the absence of community consensus, will dictate the road, the use of the road, and the idea of the road. But if a community is together in understanding it, they are then in the position to dictate DOT, or at least negotiate with FDOT. Another thing they did mention was, I think, the fastest way to get people through a road with the least traffic accidents, I believe was like 20 miles an hour. And that ensured constant flow with the least amount of accidents. I think I'm remembering it as 20 miles an hour. Whether that has, whatever relevance that has, I don't know. But I do remember them saying this.
And I will tell you that every comment that you have just made is 100% correct. And that is what we're trying to work with FDOT on this safety analysis of the boulevard and trying to really envision what that road needs to be. And once the engineers do the work and they run through all the data, then we'll be coming to the community and say, well, this is what we think, should be, and we'll work through that process.
I have every faith you will do that. But then again, I had faith for 15 years. So I'm rooting for you.
So I assume you really have like a.
Correct.
Okay, so we're in Wilson. So you're gonna have the same problem. You're not gonna be able to make a left.
But we can't do that. We
Yeah,
can't.
we get more of that.
And we can't do that.
It's a cost.
I found an analysis, and it's about 700 cars a day. In peak season and on holiday. Residents say it's trying to get out, and that entrance from their. That's impossible. There's no traffic. So Locust Sands is going to request their traffic study. They claim there's all no software. We're also going to request the communication study. We're concerned about safety of pedestrians and bicycles. We can't make a left out of Locust Sands right now. Just like. And like you said, what's going to change? It doesn't make sense. And we've been here for like 12 years. And we cannot imagine what this amount of traffic is. So I fully appreciate it. And I'm ready. So I'm happy to hear that the city is considering the FDOT, what this is going to do. We can't get out of our conference. Most of us go down and make a right. Maybe you turn to your right to make a left. And that's not fair to the people that really want to do that. Is it? But it's the only way to make a left.
Well, that's the problem with that part of the town. Because I live on 64, and they just mentioned that that's a problem.
That's a problem.
It is, you're only on the way out. Roll off.
Yeah.
There's a back way.
option. I don't
You
know.
guys don't have the option to go out that. You're the worst district for traffic.
So, just one more comment. So the communities are coming from the north of concerned residents that are going to really question the plans. We have to.
Okay, there's one more question that we're on item 1 of the agenda, so, and I know it's an important item, so. But
Just quickly, it is more of an FYI. But as we consider new developers and owners out of the new owners of the Zamora just sued the houses on property for over access to blocks and that.
I heard about that, that's a private, two private parties out, so.
It is,
Yeah,
you know, the more developers and owners, these big corporations, these are not mom and pop shops, these big corporations buying up. They really don't care about citizens of St. Pete Beach. And that's just the FYI, kind of stuff we're gonna be getting into.
okay, yeah.
Just a very quick question.
Yeah, I
He thought he was coming.
I think I'm in the wrong place, but Wood's here. There's two issues with the buses our neighborhood,
Okay,
and I thought that was the agenda, but I'm told this is like District 3, and we'll talk about something that's not.
Yeah, it's more comprehensive. It's about the various different issues in District 3. But what's your question?
I don't really have a question. I was trying to figure out
That's
what,
not- that's
I know
what
the two
the
issues
doctors
are.
are-
Yes, we
Okay.
specifically are going to talk next about electrical undergrounding, then about stormwater projects in both Lido and Dodds. If that's of interest to you.
One had to do with maybe boat ramp, and one had to do with the building a fence, had to do with support, and on the other side, a fence and a gate.
That wasn't on our
Access.
agenda, but he can probably.
cover that at some point.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail that.
Okay, so let's go on the line.
Yeah.
Thank you for the segue to item number 2.
So the undergrounding of the electrical and communications wires on local water phase 1, 75th Avenue, is ongoing. So the driller out there day by day. And that construction phase that we're performing right now is expected to be finished around Christmas time. So intermittent, very small detours, one-way traffic closure will kind of hopscotch around and continue as the contractor is drilling in different types of conduit for the different types of providers that we have. Okay, and then reaching back into the connectivity lines that lie off the Gulf Boulevard to the east and to the west. Once that project, a portion of the project is finished, then Duke Energy will come in and they will run the wire through the conduits, connect up all of the new pieces of equipment, energize that, energize each property, shifting over from the current service to the new service. Then they'll strip the wires off the poles. Communications companies will strip their wires off the poles, doing the same thing. They'll be providing their communications individually to each property. And then the pole will come down, and then we'll have a different environment. In the meantime, we're in design for the southern half, phase 2, 55th down to 35th, kind of doing the same exact process. And so we're expecting that design to be completed late this fall, August, September timeframe. And we will probably, we're looking right now, at rolling the current contractor way off of the project that is on right into the next one. So it's going to just kind of cruise right along as our plan. And then after that, we can, of course, we'll follow them again.
Yeah, so, but just to rephrase, paraphrase, what Matt said, the current contractor is going to be finishing by Christmas between 55th and 75th. You know, then he's going to move south between 55th and 35th to start doing the conduit piece of the work. That while Duke finishes the north part, then he's going to be doing the southern part. So there is going to be overlapping work. But the Duke Energy work is less intrusive to traffic than the work that we're doing. So because they're going to be mostly working on private property, putting the bringing the equipment and the equipment support. So
Duke will have a smaller footprint, probably will not be in the traffic lanes as much. And there will be some times, but as Alex said, not to the extent that we'll see right now. The other projects that I was asked to talk about, we have some stormwater mitigation projects. One is in the Bell Vista neighborhood. We call it 45th Avenue project. And so the kind of the leader there. I apologize. So that project, the heart of that neighborhood, does anybody live there? Experiencing water coming up through the drains and the street. Yeah. The heart of that neighborhood is kind of a low-lying bubble. And so we're taking a look at how to improve the drainage, rainwater flowing out and preventing the bay water from flowing in. It's looking like it's going to be a pump station situation at this point. We do not foresee being able to drill in the large diameter pipes between the very small easement areas that we have between houses right now. So we're looking at piping the water to discharge out at the Bogus Ciega Isle Bridge. And so it'll be an interesting dynamic to see how that all shapes up. That's current. I think that's where we're heading right now with that situation. The other one is the Maritana neighborhood or the Johnson Bar neighborhood, surrounded by the east, west, north, south Maritana pathway. We're in phase 2 of a concept study on how to protect that neighborhood. It's very unique in that it actually has a perimeter road with the seawalls on the other side versus seawalls on property lines every place else in the city. And so that study will be coming to the commission in 1 or 2 meetings in May for the design start approval. So that's what that project was. We really have speculation at this point as to what direction we're going to be going. But trying to evacuate the water from that neighborhood. Currently, it flows along the street system out through the seawalls. That I think is the dynamics of sea level rise and our stormatic activities continue to change and increase. That we're going to have to shift over to a series of pump stations. The original concept that we had a year and a half or 2 years ago showed large pump stations, and we're piping all the water into the park and then pumping it back out again. I think we're going to turn that inside out, and we'll have smaller pump stations around the perimeter of the neighborhood, and we'll leave the road network kind of in place as it is. But more to follow. Like I said, the proposal will come before the commission for approval in May, 1 of the 2 meetings. Not sure which one yet. That's all I have.
Can I make a quick comment? On the Maritana, when the new drains were doing homework installed, they worked. I think there's some maintenance ongoing maintenance that needs to be done because the baffles get clogged or whatever. So they don't work. But again, putting lift stations around Maritana, the neighbors would be crazy with the noise and whatever. They did work when they were originally installed. I'm sure you guys know that.
Yes, yes. Pump stations, the electronics are above ground and the pumps are below ground. And they're housed in concrete. We already have one at 4th Avenue. It's in Paso Grill. And we have no indication whatsoever of any noise issues. The only real thing we have to do is make sure that hatch stays closed down so the cars drive over. But I think that's where we're headed. Your observation on the check valves is right. Unfortunately, sometimes there'll be pieces of debris can get in there and hold that valve open, so the water does come up. And when it back flushes out, debris goes away. We had a dive team doing inspections on those structures just last month. We got the report. 3 of them did have issues that have been corrected. And so we're learning as we move forward. The tie check valves. When I was going through college, we didn't talk about tie check valves. It wasn't part of the menu of the infrastructure.
Is simply maintaining the current valves a problem? Wouldn't that be an easier solution? Because they do work when they are not obstructed.
So the scenario that we're preparing for is the sea level rise and stormatic activity that routinely overtops the existing seawalls. So that's what we're headed. So if you have a seawall in the Maritana area and it's not elevated to the current code elevation, you start thinking about what you're going to do. because the number of days of flooding, sunny day flooding are going to increase over time. And we'll have to just sort of figure out how we're going to work that issue.
And I'm on West Maritana, and we raised our seawall to the previous height, not the new height. But when the water comes up, it regularly actually comes up through the ground. It's not really flooding over the wall. So building the walls up higher and higher is not going to stop the problem. The water comes up in junctures, you see it at the sides of the road where it's coming up when the water is very high.
You are 100% right. And so the solution really, and this is what we have our engineers working on, is a multi-factor approach. Okay, so seawalls, yes, need to be higher, but then the ground also needs to be elevated. Okay, now roads will need to be elevated, but we can't elevate the roads where the houses are below the road level. So this is not necessarily a solution that will be implemented in the summer of 2023. This is a decade-long process in where we will have to come to an agreement with the community that all these components are going to have to be done for this to function, right? So the private property owners will have to do their part. The city will have to do their part, and we get to an agreement as to to what level of safety do we bring this up to? Because you've got different curve models in terms of if you have seen what the expectations for sea level rise are. The 2060 numbers are manageable, 2.5, 3 feet. The 2100 numbers are not, because we're talking about 7 feet of sea level rise. And then it's a completely different ballgame. Mike and I are engineers, and as such, we are optimists that mankind, all of us, in the next 20, 30 years, will figure out, more practical solutions to change that curve. Because there's a lot of property value that's at risk. There is a lot of community displacement that's at risk. And I think when mankind gets those challenges, somebody steps up to the surface. And I love to just read science, and there's always a lot of innovation that is happening every day. There's a lot of things that they're doing in Sweden. They're taking carbon emissions and generating electricity from out of carbon to take carbon out of the atmosphere. Small prototype plants at this point, but there's enough work that's been done by really smart people that I think will change that. So if we can buy time, right, and that's what the exercise that Mike is doing, is buying time for some of those things to happen. So
I bought a small boat the other day. If you would like to go to a website that's very interesting, go to NOAA .slr sea level rise. There's a tracking chart on there. You can slide the bar up and down. It's fascinating. Don't go to 10 feet. They'll tear your heart out. That's all.
So, excuse me, I have one question about the variable of the wires on the lower and all that. The comprehensive plan talks extensively about human scale, pedestrian scale lighting. Now, I just found out in this meeting here that actually the state owns that or runs that road. So they would have a lot to say about how it's lit. But in order to not make it feel like what somebody said, well, I know like airplane runway or something like that, the scale of that light and that pedestrian walk that you talked about a little bit, that has to be dealt with, is integral to that. Instead of huge overheads, if you really want to change the intimacy, the feel of it, and also help slow down the feel of it, that it's not a super highway, that it's more like driving through a development.
Right. And in the project that we're doing, basically, we're creating additional stop-outs to be able to go to a lower level light at some point, because when you go from a light that's here to a light that's here, you need more lights more often. So we're providing for the conduit, and we're still having discussions with FDOT in terms of lighting visibility because they have two different sides of the house that are pulling in different directions. There's the environmental side of the house that wants to see turtle lighting, yellow lighting on the boulevard. The safety side of the house is saying, well, there's a visibility issue already on the boulevard. You know, there's a little bit of a tug of war between them and everything else. So we're making provisions for it. So it's just a matter of them, plugging in the right light but hopefully we can find some balance that protects the pedestrian at the same time as the environmental friendly. So more to come on that.
One more comment on the safety analysis on Gulf Boulevard. When you come off of the Bayway, you take a right hand turn onto Gulf Boulevard, there's a no turn on red sign and it's lit up. But when the sun is out, you actually can't see it. And we cross the street there all the time and almost get run over. I mean, it's gotta be 50% of the time because people don't see that that you can't turn.
Right.
I wanted to talk about a little bit different aspect of the redevelopment, although I do agree that Gulf Boulevard can only hold so many cars at a time. I would like to, maybe you can direct me to where it is, but I want to better understand the economic impact. Like if we have more people here, we're probably gonna have more police incidents. We're gonna have more sewage. I mean, there are a lot of other things, and I'm looking for the financial analysis so that we don't end up subsidizing the hotels with our taxes because the police get more calls and we have to pay for those extra police. And I did ask at one meeting about the bed tax. I was told that I know we don't get anything from that. And I said, well, can't we work on that? Because I don't like to be a victim. I mean, do we have to have a petition? Do we have to go meet with representatives? I mean, especially if there's going to be a lot more revenue if these things go forward, then I don't see why our expenses go up. But we're just told, we're not at that table. And so I'm really concerned about the financial implications of any of these changes. And I'm looking for that financial analysis that says, what is it really going to mean to us? Because I don't want to be negative on things, but like when they have different events, we are paying for that. And I just think there needs to be, the financial implications need to be outlined. And we need to make sure that none of this stuff goes forward that's going to hit our pocketbooks.
Yeah, and we intend to have financial analysis with this project, because they're very large projects. So you'll have that.
But who do we meet with? I mean, I don't want to hear that we're a donor. I've heard that.
But, yeah, in terms of the bed tax,
it's a state law, so your state representative or state senator can help with that.
So, but we need to get a process, a movement, invite them to our meetings. I mean, somehow we just can't not have a plan to address it.
Right, so let me just address a couple of things with tourist development tax. We do get beach renourishment, it's funded through that. We don't pay anything as a city for beach renourishment. That comes from the federal government, state government, and county government. And part of that is the tourist development tax. So a little kind of brief history on the tourist development tax. It was initiated by the state. The city doesn't control it. We're going to invite our state representative to come and address us when she's done the session or in session right now, so it's a visit. But the whole idea of the tourist development tax was, and you probably know it if you go to a hotel and you stay, you get a big bill in the end, and you're kind of surprised at how it went from, they told me so much per room per night. Well, that's because of the sales tax, and then on top of the sales tax, the tourist development tax. So in some cases, it's as much as 20%. So the big cities you go to. Us, we have the 6-cent state tax, the 1 penny for Pinellas, and then the tourist development tax, which I believe is now up to 6 more cents. The predominant reason for having that was to advertise for tourism. So the lion's share of the tourist development tax doesn't come to any cities. It goes back to the Convention and Visitors Bureau through the county to advertise for tourism. And it's debatable whether you agree with that or not. That's why the state did it in cooperation with counties and tourist development areas. The other thing, over time, it's morphed a little bit, and they have paid for big ticket items. So the Tropicana Field has been funded through the tourist development tax predominantly. Currently, some of the other stadiums, the Clearwater Threshers and
The Dolly Museum.
the Dolly Museum and the Dead Bush, ones that are deemed to get,
That doesn't help my tax bill.
I'm just explaining, I'm not saying we
No,
don't,
I
yeah.
understand your explaining, and I've had the explanation before. And what I'm saying is the explanation is not acceptable.
Okay, but that's not what I'm also trying to explain. That's not your tax bill. Unless you go to a hotel.
No, I'm talking about the police.
Okay, that's a different, that's right, that's a different topic,
Our
yeah,
expenses are gonna go
yeah,
up,
yeah.
and I don't see anything offsetting those increased expenses, and I don't wanna subsidize these
I-
hotels.
We agree with it, and
So
that's,
what's the
right,
plan? What steps do we need to take so that we're not subsidizing the hotels?
For additional firefighters.
yeah, I understand that, I was suggesting tourist development tax.
I don't care about Tropicana Field, sorry.
Okay.
People do, but I just don't wanna be subsidizing the hotels, and I don't see, I'm looking for where the structure is so that we are assured that that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, what do we, yeah, the sewer is already gonna pay for, right? Yeah. And the hotels, when, if they build, they will pay a connection fee to connect to the system that we created.
Right.
Because that was,
That's not the ongoing expenses.
I know, correct. Yeah. So I was answering her piece. What we get is we get property taxes, okay, and including real property and personal property. And we get the BTR, business tax receipts. So what we are going to, basically the analysis that we'll do, we're not going to count on could have, would have, might have. We're going to count the things that we already know that are entitled to come to the city and compare that against the expenses that we as a city would have to provide to them in terms of police, in terms of any other public works activity, firefighting, and all of that. The fire rescue is paid by the county. By most of it. I mean, not 100%, maybe, but it's very close to 100%. So that's paid by the county. So, but we do have to count the effort of the firefighters and stuff like that. And so that analysis will be included in what goes to the commission in their decision-making process. But counting on.
So is the property tax going up anywhere close to what the property tax, fortunately, to what's happening to homeowners?
If you look at it over time, yes. If you look at it at the 10-year mark, yes. They're more elastic in their changes because they are revenue driven for the most part in their assessments. So when they have great years, they go like this, and then they have bad years, they go like that. Your home is basically infrastructure revenue tax. But if you look at the long term, and we're going to talk about that information on Tuesday. Over the long term, they do grow at a faster rate than homes.
Excuse me, but isn't property tax state tax? Or how much of the property tax that I pay as a homeowner here stays in St. Pete?
About 18%.
18,
Right.
not 80.
18,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so-
From
So yeah,
property tax
so
bill.
whatever they're gonna do, the state or the city or the state or the county is gonna get 22%, 82%. We're
Yeah,
gonna
if
get
you-
18% to take care of our firefighters and everything else that's the crazy.
Right.
Yeah, so
So the property tax that you're talking about, minutia.
but it is the only one that we can count.
Yeah, I know.
Right, so
I know, but
when-
I don't want anybody to think that it's property tax they're gonna be paying it all to us, they're not. They're
Or
paying
we
us
assess the
18%.
impact fees, like
Huh?
how does that happen?
Oh, yeah,
We
yes,
assess
yes,
the big
impact fees.
hotels,
Yeah.
with their impact.
Yes,
fees.
you're correct, but she's talking about ongoing expenses.
Yeah.
Impact fees will go
They
into
don't-
capital, the one-time capital expense. Property taxes, and that 18% is what we have to calculate in terms of like, okay, this is what we actually will get. And how does that compare to the services that we have to provide to them?
And what they were paying before, yeah.
You know, the incremental services, the incremental revenue and the incremental expenses as a result of the project, right?
Is there any city level tax that can be levied on a hotel based on room nights or capacity that would offset expenses specific to how many room nights they're selling? So obviously, the city cleans up the beach, but a 700-room hotel is going to generate a lot more trash on the beach than a 50-room hotel. So is there anything that's variable that?
You have to get together with her and go on lobby state
Okay.
for us to do that.
The city has no authority to levy.
No, every tax that we levy is pursuant to state law. Right.
Well, I just feel like, yes, I can write to my senator, who's probably not gonna pay any attention to it. So I guess I was looking for a more organized, like, I honestly think if we told the hotels, you can't do anything unless you get us a piece of this bed tax, they would probably lobby way better than I could to make that happen. I mean, I think it just has to be somebody who knows how all this works, that can come up with an approach other than me as an individual voice, trying to get somebody to look at this.
But you got 4 of you elected officials here listening, so.
Yeah.
So at this, at our level, or the city level, I'm not, what's the benefit to any of this development, or approving any of this development? If it's not generating any income to the city, the burden on the residents with traffic and property taxes and the infrastructure keeps going up and up and up. Why would we approve any development?
So the first premise has to be, is there a financial gain or not, right? And we don't have the answer to that yet, because we haven't run the numbers yet. But
We answer the question, we let them develop, we know the answer to that, but we don't know where the financial gain is.
they haven't been approved for development. Yeah. Okay, we'll run the numbers, and that's part of the, the decision. Huh?
Miramar was approved before.
Yeah, the Miramar, it really
Was
is,
the financial
it
analysis
is,
of those
it's the minimum. The Miramar is the minimum, the number of rooms that they added, doesn't really affect our services at all. We don't add any more police or any more firefighters because of them adding, the number of rooms that they added.
Yeah, I think what people are expressing in general is that it really, an issue that a lot of the beach areas deal with, and that's that we know we're an economic engine for the county.
Right.
We know this. And so the last election, in my analysis, was this idea that you have to have a balance where the administration takes care of the residents, but then also has a concession as if that it's the engine to economic development for the county. So, and when that gets out of whack, people,
Right.
want to be heard. That's a lot of what the election was that it was unbalanced, or at least a lot of people felt that it was unbalanced. And what you're hearing here is that we would like to get more balance. Part of the economic analysis too, when you're talking on a micro level, city level, it doesn't include things like the shifts in the demographics of our population. Years back, it used to be that owner operators lived here,
Mhm.
that employees lived here. That's not, that has shifted.
Mhm.
The Don is a real estate investment corporation.
Mhm.
That's who owns them, an international multi-billion-dollar real estate investment corporation. They buy and they sell. They don't operate that. The money doesn't stay. It's not, and the people who go there, I don't know what the percentages of residents of St. Pete Beach that work at the Don, but I would bet it's under 10%. That didn't used to be the case, and I would bet that's true of a number of hotels. So, the demographics has changed, and a lot of the analysis that I read in terms of economics don't address the micro level.
Mhm.
And that's the level that I look at.
Right.
And you would agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Well, so I would hope that the administration, both the elected and the professional public administration that we have in the city, understands this concept of equity. I'm sure you do, you're professional, and the ramifications of the last election, which were basically a consensus by population that we do want more.
The comprehensive plan says that. It really talks to the fact that there needs to be a balance between the two, because that little on the mural downstairs, the first on the business building, about the vision for St. Pete, basically comes right out of the comprehensive plan. And it talks about people having to live here at the same time we need development, or we should have development, not let it just fall to rot. So that's part of what was planned in the first place. It's just hard to get the balance, is what, that's what I see.
And part of that balance is trying to keep some tourism, because tourism that supports the businesses that we frequent. And, we're gonna talk all about that Tuesday, and, it's a big challenge that we have. And you do have to recognize that these properties have development rights, just like you do at your house. And so we have to balance that, and our city attorney is gonna talk about,
I think
yeah,
it's
especially
harder probably to get a tree removed in a house than it is to get a hotel.
Maybe not.
That's facetious, but
Yeah, I know. Jeffrey, what do we have next?
vision program.
Yep, and before we get beautification, and this is kind of beautification, but stormwaters, we are talking about that with Mike. We do have a adopt a drain program. That when Mark mentioned it, our Commissioner Grill at the last meeting, the meeting before, we got 2 people registered within the 5 minutes of you saying that. So I'm hoping that happens tonight. On our website, on what page is it on?
We have it on the homepage. You can find it, and also on the Public Works page.
So what that is we're doing an adopt a drain program. We mirrored similar to what Pinellas County does. You pick a drain that's by your house. If you've got debris, palm fronds, things that are in that, you would clean those up. We provide the little picker uppers. I don't know what they're called. So technical. A nice yellow vest to protect you and some gloves.
A cone, if you need it.
And a cone if you need it, to keep yourself safe. So if you're interested in doing that, if you live close to one, sign up to do that. We're trying to do that just to help our whole stormwater issues throughout the city, so. Sign up.
This is part of the 1,000 Points of Light program, right? So,
From that beautification program, we are in phase 2. So we started a beautification event last year when we had this town hall. Is when we were, I think, just starting it. So we had homes that volunteer. If you have asphalt that's in the front of your house and right of ways, you can sign up to do the beautification program. We take out the asphalt and then we come back in and do some ground cover and some trees. Part of that is because of the stormwater, and we want some surfacing that isn't asphalt, taking that up, putting something in. We work with each individual house because every house is different. Some people have irrigation systems that they want to put in there, so we can put in sod rather than some ground cover that you don't need to water. And then we're trying to just uplift our tree canopy and kind of cool us off a degree or 2 when we can. So we did 10 houses in phase 1, and I think we've got 10 houses that are currently being done. And in every district, we have different houses that are doing it. So if you are in that area, or your neighborhood, or if a neighbor is, where you have that capability of where asphalt is there, sign up for the program. I just
we're going to convince one of your neighbors that it's a good thing to do. It does help a lot with the drainage issues. And you already have people signing up for phase 3.
We already have people signed up for phase 3. I think now people are seeing it and see that it will beautify your street, and there's a lot of benefit to it. So if interested, or if you have a neighbor, or just spread the word throughout, because I do think it is a good program.
I'm a recipient of
Yes.
the beautification program, and they did a fantastic job. It is beautiful.
What street?
Moody Street. St.
Oh, yeah.
Bella Vista.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good. Yeah, we've got them in every district. A lot are in 1 and 2, but they are kind of throughout our city, our unique city layout. So good. Thank you for saying that. Well, let me just do these 2 before Vince comes up, so I don't have to keep getting back up here. Strategic plan. I think some of you guys were at our resident strategic plan. Sarah, if you haven't already, she's going to be sending out, if you did go, everything we discussed, what we added to our existing strategic plan. If you forgot anything or did not attend, you can still give us your input. We will also have that document on the website too. If you didn't come, you can see what the discussion was. I know I heard the left turns are horrible was brought up strategic plan. I think anywhere coming, anywhere on Gulf Boulevard, taking a left turn, whether you're coming out from going from the hotel side or to the residential side is an act. So that was discussed at that. We do have our business strategic plan meeting scheduled for May 12th, or May 2nd here at City Hall. So we will get the businesses and their feedback, and then the final step of that is we'll have a workshop with the commission to get their feedback on the same analysis we did with each. And that's what we did 3.5 years ago to our existing plan. Also on our website, I think you can see the things we've accomplished with our existing plan, which is why we're revisiting it, because we were able to check the beautification program is something that came from strategic plan. So we were able to check a lot of things off our list, and now we need more stuff to do. So that is why we're revisiting it, and we're in that process. So those that did come out, we appreciate you, and Sarah will be still, well, and you're gonna, if you didn't come, still give us your info, so keep you up to date on where we're at with all of that. And then before we talk about budget, we're going to talk about upcoming events. Good segue right here. We have a spring concert series. Last one of spring is we do them in Grant Park. If you haven't been, it's April 28th. It's the last Friday of this month. It's the Tom Petty tribute that will be out there. And then if you have children, we have our summer camp registration that's ongoing now. We are filling up. So if community center, and this summer look for movies in the park and also movies at the pool. We'll be rolling those out. So another thing that we are looking at, Sarah's got a survey live.
We're having some technical.
Okay.
Going out.
So depending on if you don't have our newsletter that you can email to it, it's going to link you to a survey. We talked with the commission last meeting about looking at doing a drone show for fireworks, what is preferred. So that is going to be a survey, so we want to get your feedback on that. That will come out in the newsletter, but it will be also on our website as well. And for that jump up. And I think I know Bella Vista has had, the movie screen we use for the pool and sometimes in our parks, we offer to lend that out to neighborhoods. So if you want to have just an event within your own neighborhood, we'll come up, we'll set it all up, we'll make sure everything works, and then we'll come pick it up afterwards. I think you guys have had a couple in Bella Vista. We've had a couple over here in District 2, and I think we've done one in Vina recently. So if you're interested in that, just contact the community center or contact myself, Jennifer, and I will hook you up with all of that. Budget workshop minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep it nice and short. So last meeting, we had the financial audit presentation, which means just a couple days later, we were underway with the fiscal 24 budget development process. So I wanted to just let you guys know, we got the first budget workshop scheduled for May 22nd. There's a long process built into that. It's 6-7 months of work from staff. There will be at least 4 workshops, and that's before we get to the September budget hearings. So there will be at least 6 opportunities to weigh in on the budget. We encourage you to get in touch with your finance and budget committee appointees, city commissioners for input, and we're on our way. So just a quick update on that.
That's it now.
That's it.
The best for last.
Yay! Thank you.
I don't know where I don't have to.
I'm the one who writes the checks.
He's doing it for free, actually, even better. So if you haven't been to your new library yet, please come in. It's light and bright and beautiful. We have great reasons for you to come into the library, and we have so many services that you can access from home with your library card. Great reasons to come in. We've got great programs coming up. Jennifer talked about upcoming programs, but we've got some great programs too. We have a fall prevention workshop. Now, none of you are in the fall category because you're all so young. But if you have parents that might be prone to falls, this is a prevention workshop, so great information to pass along. We've also got the National Alliance on Mental Illness presentation coming up, so big challenges there with mental health these days. So come on in and hear what they've got to say. We've got a cat adoption event, so if you need a little buddy, come on in. We've got all kinds of movies going on. We've got a great book club, lots of reasons to come in for programming alone. So there's calendars on the back table. And this list of great reasons to come into the library and things that you can do from home is also on the back table. So grab them on your way out. Did you know we have free museum passes to the area museums? Really? You didn't know that? The Imagine Museum, Museum of Fine Arts, Great Exploration Children's Museum, the James Museum, free passes. So you can check out one pass and you can take 2 adults and 3 kids to the museum for free in the next 7 days. Really, great idea. Obviously we've got books and DVDs. If you're tired of going through Netflix and you spend most of your watching time deciding what to watch, come into the library. We've got book kits and craft kits. We've got Alzheimer's and dementia kits. We even have pickleball kits. So if you want to try out this fantastic sport, I know, I said it, but come on in, learn how to play kindly, and then you can play with your neighbors and your friends. Or if you already play and you need extra pickleball paddles because you've got friends coming in, come on in and get a pickleball kit. We have voter registration forms and mail-in ballot forms. We are mandated to do that by the state, so we're the place to come. We've got a great bookstore too that sells great donated items, some new, some used, so come on and see that. The library services you can access from home. So Netflix, Prime, you're paying for those, but if you have a library card, you also have access to Canopy. You have access to Hoopla, you have access to online materials of all sorts. So you're gonna wanna come and check that out. Morningstar Investment Research is a database that your financial planner uses to help you invest wisely, and they pay for access, but so does the city of St. Pete Beach. So you can get it for free at home, on your computer with your library card. So really check out this, grab one on your way out. Lots of great things to do at the library, lots of great things to do at home with your library card. Any questions?
And that's what we always finish with her.
Good deal now.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, you have one.
I have one on Zoom. Is there anything that can be worked out with Hotel Zamora so that their large supplier trucks do not come down neighborhood streets? For example, Casablanca Avenue and East Maritana. We recently had a reclaimed water break on Casablanca and the street still has not been repaved, but the giant Cisco trucks are still going down Casablanca. They should be using Gulf Boulevard, not the neighborhood streets, I believe.
They're not supposed to be using that. It's a police issue, so we'll talk to the police and do the enforcement.
Okay.
Because they're supposed to go from the major road directly to the closest point that they can drive, and that will be coming through the boulevard. So.
Yeah, and it's posted, right, here's a picture of it.
Okay.
And it's ordinance 2080-.
Right, no trucks, right, no trucks.
And that's posted and they don't.
Okay, so.
I'd like to add one thing. If you haven't signed up for our email newsletters and our alert system, make sure you do. I send something out once a week and I get your response. So if you have any questions, any follow-up, anything you want to ask, reply to those emails and I get them. And I will be more than happy to help. Okay? Thank you. That is all I have.